tell me about a picture on your phone with the best story behind it.
Let's see. This might be the most important picture, at least in this season of my life. This is probably the most important person in my life. My grandfather was killed in 1953 when my father was 2 years old, and his boss apparently shot and killed him in an argument, but his death certificate says accidental drowning. My grandfather was an ex-Navy veteran. He was a great swimmer. There was no investigation, so my family never got justice. My father found out and never healed from it. As a matter of fact, my grandfather's death in 1953, that's the month they began recruiting Dr. King, where he would step into this leadership role of the civil rights movement. There was change about to happen, and Dr. King, what he stood for was to stop injustices like this. My grandfather was a ghost to me, like this mythic figure. My father never once made mentioning of his father in my life. So the reason why he's the most important person in my life, who was never in my life, was because he was never in my father's life, which traumatized my father, which means my father was never really there for me. And so this intergenerational trauma kept following us. But there's been resurrection. As a preacher, what drives me, particularly when it comes to issues of race, is I don't want the next generation, the next young African-American pastor, to have the same experiences and have the same conversations that I've had to have. So fast forward 2015, this picture kind of inspired me and my father reconciling. My father told me a year ago that when I was in my mother's womb and he was at his worst, he prayed over me that the hate and the anger and the rage that was in him would not be in me. So I believe I am the embodiment of redemptive prayer. This picture represents new life for me, for my family. This is my grandfather, Nate Allen. Good looking brother. He wasn't a secret anymore. And he came to life for me, even in his death. I want his name, as part of honoring his name, to be attached to the work that I do. So I tell his story often. One of my prayers is that God would get the most out of my life. And so I also don't want my trials, my pain, my suffering to be in vain. So everything that I've experienced, I trust can be redeemed. That's what fuels me to continue to do the work, to have love and compassion, to be able to pastor in a multi-ethnic context and love people outside of my race like they're brothers and sisters of mine. This idea of intergenerational trauma, it stops with me.